Some very disturbing video coming from Washington, D.C., an incident where Washington, D.C. police rolled up on a few youths who seemed to be suspicious, according to a woman who called because she encountered them at a bank that she was going into with her baby and stroller, and one of the young men opened the door for her and then stood around, and she felt she might get robbed because they were hanging around the ATM. And so this is what she had to say, part of what her 911 call was, before we get to the video. This is the 911 caller. And I have to reiterate, the only issue that really made it stand out was that they weren't doing anything in the bank. And as soon as we left, they stayed. So that was suspicious. So, Elliot, they weren't doing anything, and therefore it was suspicious. Right. So she called the cops. Now, these three young men, oh, did I mention they're African American? I probably should mention that, because this is what happens when three African American men are hanging out by a bank. It's called banking while black. They're on their way. The police are called, roll up on them in a very aggressive manner. One of the young men almost gets hit by the car. He starts to flee because he doesn't know why they're coming at him. And this is where we pick up the video.
He didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing.
Behind your back. Stop resisting and put your hands behind your back.
You're not resisting. He didn't do nothing.
Behind your back, sir.
He didn't do nothing. You're not resisting.
Take my beef. Mike, take my stuff, man.
I'm gonna get
Back up.
I'm trying to
Back up right now.
Back up. Hey, Mike, back up.
I'm not doing. I'm backing up. I'm backing up.
So they attack the cameraman as well because he's interfering with police officers by videotaping. This is what happens when you're a young African-American male in Washington, D.C., and you're hanging out on the street and you have to be near a bank because you yourself was going to use the ATM.
Right.
And you happen to be nice enough to to open the door for a mother and her child. Mm-hmm. Or you think that they deserved this?
No, of course not. I'm not going to sit here and defend that, but I mean, it's a very disturbing video, and it's always, I mean, those sort of takedowns are very, very disturbing, and it would seem from this, they obviously had done nothing wrong, and yet the police go in with both boots in.
Two things are happening here. One is the woman who called, she felt threatened because there was young African-American males around the ATM, and she felt that they were just waiting to rob somebody, so we might as well call the cops. So she's making a presumption there.
Right. Are you questioning her right to do that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. On what grounds?
Because they weren't committing a crime. They were just existing. She said it in her own phone call. She said this. They weren't doing anything in the bank. They weren't doing anything. And so when the police roll up and start roughing him up and pulling his arm out of the socket, they're yelling, "We didn't do anything." And they're going, "That's right, you didn't do anything. You weren't doing anything, and that's why they called the cops on you. That's why we're fucking roughing you up. You didn't do anything."
Right. So, okay. So, but you're questioning, I'm not questioning, we're taking one thing at a time here. So you're questioning her right to call the police.
Yes, I am.
Fair enough.
They didn't do anything. She even said it. They didn't do anything.
She felt intimidated. She's there with her child. I'm just trying to see it from her perspective. I'm not suggesting it was the right thing to do. I'm not suggesting I would do it.
You call the police when a crime has been committed. You don't call because you think somebody might commit a crime. They didn't do anything. She felt threatened. They weren't doing anything wrong.
Okay.
They weren't there to rob anybody. If they were, that hasn't come out. But apparently they weren't there to rob people. So her calling was wrong, and this is how people get killed. It's lucky he didn't get killed. When people call because, there's a suspicious guy walking down the street drinking a tea and eating Skittles, they can end up being killed. They can end up being killed because the cops roll up thinking they're rolling up on criminals. And they treat them like they're criminals. And they pull their arm out of the socket because they think they're criminals. And then they tackle the other guy holding the camera because he thinks he's a criminal. And he thinks they're criminals because somebody called because they went, those guys look like they're about to commit a crime.
All right. So, but let me ask you another question. Risk of setting you off again. One of the guys ran, correct?
One of them ran. There were three.
Three
one of them-
guys, three friends, whatever.
Because they probably are more aware than we are that when a cop rolls up on you with attitude, you got a chance of dying. You got a chance of dying even though you didn't do anything wrong.
So my question to you is, if that is the case, and if that is the case, why run? Why not just stand there? It's not. Listen, they have guns, so the bullet's going to be quicker than you or I running,
probably
or him running.
An instinctive reaction. Like if you have a cat sitting on the sidewalk and you go chasing after it, it's going to run. Instinctively, it knows that's dangerous. I got to get away from it. And these guys, I'm sorry, they got uniforms on. At this point, they're criminals. At this point, they're committing a crime. They're the criminals. The other guys aren't the criminals. These guys are pulling his arm out of his socket for no reason. They're the criminals. So they have a reason to be afraid. So I don't know. The video is very upsetting. It's very upsetting that we have to see this kind of thing again. It's very upsetting. Sorry I raised my voice. Love to know your comments. Thanks for subscribing to Lip TV.